Credit scores, a number we have to look after, yet we're not taught much about it at school. When it comes to credit scores, I come across so many myths that I thought it was about time that we dispel some of these credit card myths on the podcast today. To delve into everything we need to know about credit scores, as well as share some handy tips on how you can boost yours, I'm joined with Aash Thapa, a personal finance content creator. Hello, Ash. How are you doing today?
Hiya. Thank you for having me. I'm good.
You're welcome. I'm very excited to chat to you on the podcast today.
Yeah, no, it's excited to be on here.
So, obviously, we know each other pretty well now. We've met each other on a couple of occasions. But for those that don't know you, please introduce yourself to everyone listening.
Yes, so my name's Aash Thapa, like you said. I make content around personal finance, especially kind of more focused in the UK. And been doing that for the last 4 years now, I think, coming up to 5 nearly. So.
Wow. And what made you start it?
I think it was a bit of two things. So one, there wasn't really anyone else in the UK kind of making content around personal finance, and I was really interested in personal finance at the time because I just read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Classic.
And yeah, I know. I was like,
Who hasn't read that?
Yeah, no, I actually met him not too long ago in Mayfair, but
Oh, really?
yeah, that was such a weird moment. But anyway, yeah, so I started doing that, and then I was actually making content around entrepreneurship and like marketing as well at the time.
Yeah.
But personal finance was more of a thing. Was like, okay, I'm not an expert on it, but let me kind of learn and share the lessons I learned along the way.
Yeah.
So that just kind of started taking off, and then kind of went all in on that, and here we are.
Gone viral a couple of times?
Yeah,
Just a few.
one or two.
A couple of 1 or 2 million views online. No, but I'm very excited to chat to you on the podcast today. And obviously, we're all about personal finance on the podcast. So we're going to be chatting all things credit scores, etc., etc. However, before we delve into that, I'm keen to know a little bit more about you and your money habits, right?
Okay.
So I'm keen to know what's been your best ever purchase?
Best ever purchase. Ooh, I feel like straight away, like material things come to a lot of people's mind, but I can't really think of anything like material. I'd probably say like holidays, or like, yeah, going on holidays would probably be like a better purchase for me.
And what's been your favourite ever holiday if you had to pick one?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Let's see, best ever holiday. I don't know, because I feel like everything has its like own dynamic twist to it. So it's like, okay, like this holiday was good for, I don't know, like for example, when we went to Mexico, that was good for like kind of just, being in the water. Did a lot of like water sports, in the beach, played volleyball and stuff like that. Went to Sri Lanka recently as well. That was good to like, just explore a whole different side.
Yeah.
So, I'll probably out of those two though, Mexico and Sri Lanka. Yeah.
To be fair, Sri Lanka's very high up on my list. Would you recommend?
Yeah, no, definitely recommend. It's got like everything climate-wise and everything.
Okay, adding that to the list. And then I guess on the other hand, obviously you do talk about loads of different personal finance topics on your page. So I'm keen to know what's probably been one of your biggest financial regrets.
Biggest financial regret? I don't know. I feel like at the start when I started making content. When I started making content, I think I was just like pretending or thinking as if like I was gonna get brand deals like every month.
Yeah.
How I was getting it. So maybe like adapting my lifestyle to that like too quick. But obviously I learned after a while. So that's probably something.
And do you ever feel like, because you have to create content with your personal finance, do you think you put unnecessary pressure on yourself to be the best at managing your finances too?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's like, okay, cool. Because obviously you follow your own advice, right?
Yes.
You want to follow your own advice. And I do that most of the time. But then obviously there's always here and there, like some things maybe you're impulsive, it's hard to control. Like we're human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I do slip up here and there, but I definitely try and
well, this is it. Like I think it's so important for everyone listening and for us ourselves to know that like you said, we're all human. Like there's definitely times where I've probably spent way too much on ASOS, and that's definitely been the case this summer because I've had so many like weddings and like, parties and all sorts. I'm like, gosh, Ollie, your credit card bill has been high. Do you know what I mean?
You don't plan people's birthdays, like it just comes.
No, exactly that. But obviously we're chatting all things credit cards, credit scores, especially in today's podcast episode. And for those listening, and I guess let's start with the very basics. What actually is a credit card?
I think the best way to look at it, or how I like to look at it, is it's like the bank's card. So the bank give you a card, right? And then they're like, okay, we'll give you this amount of money every month,
Yeah.
or like a set amount of money, and you get to spend it, but you have to pay it back within 30 days. Otherwise, you get charged for basically using it for any periods longer. Yeah.
So is having a credit card as scary as everyone makes out to be, in your opinion?
If you don't have a credit card, I think it is scary because then it's just like, oh, like I'm signing myself up to debt. That's what people think. But I think once you get it and you kind of know like the basics around it, I don't think it's as scary as you think.
Yeah. And out of interest, do you have your own credit card?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I've got
How many? 1, 2, 3?
No, I've got 3 actually. So I've got Amex BA, I've got the Amex Gold, and I've got a student HSBC one.
Interesting. We'll be touching on Amex later on in the podcast because I've got a lot to divulge with Amex. But yeah, I've got 2 actually as well. I've got one with Aqua, which is a credit score builder credit card, which I've had for like 4 years now. And I also have one with Virgin Money, which it used to be a 0% interest credit card because I had used that to pay off my very expensive car insurance. And now it's just a regular credit card that you typically use for like business spending now.
Okay,
but yeah, guys, if you guys are listening, you know now me and Ash both have credit cards. So they're not all as bad as what everyone thinks they are. So obviously we'll be diving into that in a little bit later. But again, we're chatting about credit scores today. So those listening, what is a credit score?
A credit score is a way that basically, I guess, credit bureaus or like agencies, people who basically see how you manage your credit, score you. So depending on how you do manage your credit and how you spend, they basically give you a score on how much of a risk you basically look like to other lenders, for example.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the simplest way to describe it.
No, you explained it pretty dead on. And obviously when it comes to your credit score, obviously up and down the country, everyone has a credit score, right? So I remember you made a very good video explaining this on your Instagram. What is the actual average credit score in the UK?
So I think the average credit score was 797.
Okay.
So
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
Because I think, again, when it comes to like credit score myths, everyone just assumes because they've never had credit ever in their life, they either don't have a credit score or it's going to be really, really bad. But actually that average just shows... I was actually quite impressed when I saw that figure. I'm not gonna lie. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I thought it'd be in like the 500s probably. But yeah, no, 797 like nearly 800 basically.
Yeah. So. And that's why, guys, it's actually so important that you actually check your credit score because it might be a lot higher than you think it is. But again, people are too scared to do that because they think checking your credit score actually reduces your credit score.
Oh yeah,
which is obviously not the case.
Myth.
And then I guess when it comes to obviously having your credit score, like I said in the intro, it's so important that we are looking after our credit score for a number of different reasons. But what are the benefits of having that good credit score?
I think the biggest benefit is probably when you are taking out a loan or like, about to purchase something bigger. So the main examples that people use are cars and mortgages. You're more likely to get better rates or offered better rates. And this, again, goes back to the credit score thing. It's just like, okay, how risky do you look like to the lender?
Yes.
So I think it's about getting accepted. That's like sometimes the case. Sometimes you might not even get accepted if you don't have a good credit score, or it might be very hard for you to take that loan out. But yeah, usually you get a better rate, so which means you're probably going to save up more money in the long term.
And yeah, you're so right. And I guess another good benefit of having good credit score is that if you needed to kind of opt for like other loans, if you need an overdraft facility, if you want business loans, if you're starting up your own business, again, having that good credit score is so important because like you said, lenders will look at you as if, well, they'll assess your risk, right? Are you going to actually pay me back, or are you going to overspend that credit card on impulse spending online? Whoever knows. But I guess another thing when it comes to credit scores is that it's really important, like I said, that we're not only looking after it, but actually finding creative ways of building that credit score. So what are some ways, if anyone's listening on the podcast today that wants to improve their credit score, how can they actually go about doing so?
So I think a really important thing is to actually looking at your payment history. So a lot of people actually don't do this, so which I'm surprised by. So a lot of people don't have automatic payments set up.
Okay.
And they miss their payments, so that affects like the score a lot. So you want to make sure you have automatic payments set up.
Yeah.
So basically you have a direct debit that pays out your, ideally your total spending for the month. Number 2 is try not to use more than 10 to 20% of your credit card.
Okay.
Right. So let's say they give you £1,000, try not to use like more than £200 just because you look less riskier to the lenders. But obviously that's just one credit card. You might have a bunch of credit cards, so your limits will be higher. So, and then I think the third thing, and this is like really easy to do as well, if you just sign up to the electoral register, like that will be more likely to put your credit score up as well.
Amazing. I feel like loads of people know the importance of actually signing up to electoral register. But if anyone doesn't, what does it mean to actually sign up for the electoral register, and how can you actually go about doing so?
So the electoral register basically just means that you basically sign up to vote and you have the right to vote. So make sure you go and sign up. Yeah, you can just sign up on the government website and it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, it literally takes all of 2 minutes. However, now that we're post-election, hopefully most of you guys were already registered. But if you're not, then it's never too late to sign up for the electoral register. And it's so important, especially if you've moved away from your family home to university, make sure you're registered at your university address. And I guess another thing that can be quite helpful in terms of boosting your credit score is actually having some bills in your name. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of platforms out as well, which you can basically put your rent towards your credit score, like show that you pay rent on time every month. So I did this at the start, just set up a couple of direct debits, just to kind of basically show that I was using my credit card and then basically paying it off every month. So yeah, try not to put all your bills on there, but yeah, definitely put some bills on.
No, amazing. And I guess let's go back to the credit utilisation, because you mentioned around aiming towards 10 to 20% of your available credit limit, right? Now, let's say you've been like Ola this summer and you've maybe spent a little bit over your 10 to 20% utilisation. Is that the end of the world?
No, definitely not the end of the world. Because even if you spend, let's say in the month, you spent over 50%, you can still pay that off before the end of the month. And well, before your statement date, which is like a date that they give you before they report it to the actual agencies. So if you pay it off before then, it won't actually get reported that you spent over 50%.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely not the end of the world. And, you know, it's just like sometimes you're going to do that regardless. So don't worry about if you spend more than 30%, but it's just a good kind of rule of thumb.
Yeah, no, 100%. I do agree. So don't be like Ola, guys, and spend more. But like you said, credit cards are there to also offer increased protection. So yeah, I guess obviously that being one benefit of a credit card, why else should people maybe consider using credit cards when shopping online or using it day to day?
So, well, the first thing that comes to my head is, like you mentioned, the credit protection. So I think you're covered from £100 to like up to £30,000 on your purchases. So, you know, I think people also think they only should make small purchases on their credit cards, but definitely like, you know, put your big ones on there as well, because you're going to get protected by the credit card company. And they usually have a lot better protection than debit cards as well. Yeah. Because their customer service is just usually better for me anyway. And you can also get a lot of rewards. So depending on what kind of rewards you're looking for, you can get rewards like flights, hotels, shopping, and even dinners out.
Oh, wow. So yeah, quite a lot of benefits to having a credit card there. And obviously, like I've kind of mentioned before in previous episodes, using a credit card isn't the issue, right? It's all about using it wisely, effectively, paying it in full before, you know, payment is due, because that's when I guess interest starts racking up, right?
Yeah. So that's another thing. So I think a lot of people think that as soon as they get a credit card, they have to pay interest straight away. But you don't actually have to pay any interest if you've paid off your statement balance. Yeah. So, you know, let's say you've spent £200 for the month. If you've cleared that £200 before the due date, then you don't have to pay any interest. Yeah. You only have to pay interest once you leave a balance on the card, and you know, you're basically paying for borrowing that money for a longer period of time. Right.
Okay. Guys, I hope you made note of that. And then I guess, like I mentioned in the intro, I have come across so many myths to do with credit scores, right? So what are some credit score myths you have heard about? And please help us dispel them in today's episode.
Yeah, so I think we mentioned this earlier in the podcast. Like checking your credit score is not going to affect your credit score. Yeah. You know, it's completely like harmless to check your credit score. So that's definitely one. And then people think if you have a bad credit score that you won't get accepted for anything. That's not the truth. You will still get accepted. It might be harder for some things, but that's kind of where you work on building your credit score.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people also think that if they close like a credit card that they don't use, it will improve their score. It's actually the opposite. So if you close a credit card, it'll probably hurt your score, because what this does is basically the credit that you have access to, it basically reduces it. So let's say you had £1,000 before. Yeah. You know, now it's only £500. Before you could use up to £200, right? Or that was the magic number. So that was the 20%. But now you'd have access to much less. So once it drops to £500, your utilization will be even less than before.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people also think that if you leave a balance on your credit card, that it will damage your credit score. this is not true. Like, obviously, you're going to have to pay interest on it, and
Yes.
you shouldn't technically leave balances ideally. But if you leave a balance on your credit card, it won't harm your credit score.
Yeah.
Obviously, in excess, if you don't leave in excess. And then I think finally, I think a lot of people also think that student loans affect your credit score, but they have no correlation. So you're totally fine. Don't worry about your student loans.
Yeah.
You'll be good.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that last one, because I feel like, yeah, loads of people always speak to me about their student loans and how they're stressed about how that's having a detrimental impact on their credit score. And it's actually not the case, guys. So yeah, it's really important to note that if you do have existing student loan debt, mine is about 65k at the moment, probably plus interest now since I graduated 4 years ago. It doesn't have a detrimental impact on your credit score. But I think let's go back to also when we say things like certain things might impact your credit score, right? When we're talking about that, can we give some reassurance to my listeners in the fact that when something maybe hurts your credit score, it's not for the long term? Because I feel like a lot of people think that if they, let's say they did shut down a credit card they no longer want, or they maybe did miss a payment, they think that's the be all and end all, and they're never gonna be able to get a mortgage. So please, can you reassure the listeners that's not the case?
Yeah, so this is a word of reassurance. You're definitely not gonna be harmed. Like, it's literally a short term thing. Like, you can build out your credit score in a couple of months, and if you've done something like closing down your credit card, don't worry about it. Just keep using your good habits, kind of using it properly. And if you're opening up credit lines, like, be aware like that will maybe damage your credit score as well.
Yeah.
But again, that's temporary, so don't worry about the kind of long-term effects of it. You'll be fine over the long term, and you can always improve it over time.
No, amazing. And I guess let's go back to the fact that you said you got 2 Amex cards, right? And again, this is something I always get asked about. Oh, should I get an Amex? Should I get an Amex? Should I get an Amex? Ash, is Amex, aka American Express, is it all that it's cracked up to be?
For me personally, it has been. I think just because one, their customer service is really good, and I pride that a lot. Because if there's anything that you do run into trouble with your credit cards, or you just need help around, they're really quick with it and they're really helpful. Plus, they have like a number of benefits. I think so. My BA Amex Avios one. My BA one. So that's basically more prioritized for getting miles on it, like flight miles, flight points. And I can use that when I go away on flights. So for example, when I went on a trip to Nepal, I used my points to kind of get like £300 off my flight.
Wow.
So it helps a lot during that. And then I also basically use it on shopping deals as well. So they have a bunch of partners that they work with. So even if you go out to eat or go shopping, they have some sort of cashback or some sort of offer that you can basically redeem whenever you use it.
Okay, so there are a fair amount of benefits. However, my thing is with this Avios, do you have to spend a lot to actually get your money back in air miles?
I wouldn't say you have to spend like crazy amounts, because you're gonna spend that money anyway, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna get rewarded for it. And a lot of the time when you basically sign up as well, they give you like kind of a bonus amount. So for example, if you sign up to BA Amex, you'll get like 30,000 points.
Okay.
And then there's kind of other tiers. I think they've got their premium one as well, which is 1.5 times per pound that you spend. So I wouldn't say you'd have to spend crazy amounts. And like I said, you're going to spend that money anyway. You might as well get rewarded for it. It's not about you trying to spend more just to get more air miles.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I guess, obviously, we spoke about American Express credit cards just now. What are some other great credit cards on the market?
I think I only have a HSBC credit card, which I signed up to when I was a student. And a lot of credit cards have like different purposes.
Yes.
So when I just looked at like Amex straight on when I was signing up, those are the benefits. But I think it really depends on what you're prioritizing. So like I said, if you want cashback as priority, there's a lot of cashback credit cards out there. I think Capital One have a really good credit card on that. And I think even the Virgin Rewards one that you were talking about, they're really good. But like you said, right, there's ones that have 0% interest, because a lot of people don't think about other credit cards like balance transfer credit cards. That's a type of credit card. So it really depends on what your kind of benefit that you're looking for is, or like what your goal from the credit card is. Yeah. But there's a ton on the market.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And I guess because of that, because there's so many credit cards on the market, I know some people can be guilty of, hearing about American Express credit cards, or will go to Capital One and then get rejected. So how can people find the best credit card for them?
There's a lot of websites that actually let you to check your eligibility as well. So I think Credit Karma is a good one.
Yes.
I use Credit Karma, so they're good to kind of check your eligibility before you make like a full application. So it's good to check on that. And if you have like a pretty low credit score, I think maybe look for like credit builder cards first before kind of trying to jump to the Amex straight away, because there's kind of like a ladder to these credit cards as well, right? So definitely check those out before you kind of fully make an application.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I guess to add to that, I would say to make sure you check comparison websites as well. So like money.co.uk, moneysupermarket.com, they're probably usually my go-to. So before you make a full credit card application and damaging your credit score, it's always good to kind of check them out as well, because you never know. They actually might tell you that you can get an American Express, or they might tell you, actually, no, you're not going to be able to get that. Get maybe, I don't know, Aqua as an alternative for the meantime, and build your credit score over time over that, I guess. Yeah, amazing. Well, Ash, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I feel like we definitely managed to dispel a couple of credit score myths that I often hear about a lot. Obviously, like I previously mentioned, you create great personal finance content online. So if anyone wanted to check you out, where can they go to do so?
Just kind of my like Instagram and TikTok handles. It's Aash Thapa, double A on the Ash. But I'm sure there will be links below, so you can find me there.
Yeah. As always, guys, all of the links in the podcast description will be shared. And yeah, Ash, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. It was fun.